A man tried to board a plane without a ticket for the first time, but the flight attendant immediately sensed something was wrong. She thought he might have a fear of heights, so she quickly handed him 2 bottles of water to help him calm down. Later, the man put one of the bottles into his pocket. Little did he know that this thrifty act would save his life later. The plane hit severe turbulence and began to shake violently. Passengers who hadn't fastened their seatbelts were thrown out instantly, and the oxygen masks dropped down as well. Everyone grabbed the masks as if they were lifelines, hurrying to put them on. But the danger didn't end there. As the turbulence pressure grew stronger, the plane couldn't withstand it anymore and disintegrated mid-air. The passengers screamed in terror. After an unknown amount of time, the man suddenly woke up and found himself in a dense forest. Terrified, he rushed out of the forest, only to discover he was on a desolate island with no idea of its location. Just then, he heard human shouts in the distance and immediately followed the sound. The scene was in chaos, filled with cries of pain and pleas for help everywhere. Jack, the only doctor on the plane, began rushing around to rescue people with serious injuries. But at that moment, a noise caught Jack's attention. A wing was teetering above, and a pregnant woman was sitting right below it. Without a second thought, he ran toward her and managed to save both of them just 1 second before the wing fell. However, the falling wing triggered a chain reaction, causing a violent explosion. The scene was instantly engulfed in flames. Jack was unfortunately hit by debris while protecting the pregnant woman, ignoring his own injuries. Jack went back into the scene to look for more survivors, but the explosion had already turned all the injured into the dead, and the people at the scene fled in panic. So Jack went into the dense forest to suture his wound, but the injury was on his side. His own hand couldn't reach it at all. Just as he was worrying about this, a woman appeared nearby. Jack hurried to ask her for help, and the woman generously agreed, but she was soon shocked. She had never seen someone stay so calm while getting stitches without anesthesia. This incident led to the two of them getting acquainted. That night, Jack deduced from the half-destroyed plane wreckage that the cockpit should still be intact. If they could find the signal transmitter inside, they would be able to call for rescue and leave the island. This reminded Kate she had seen thick smoke rising from a valley that day, which should be where the cockpit had crashed. She said she was willing to go with him to find it. Jack was delighted at this, feeling that rescue was no longer far away. But just then, a terrifying roar suddenly came from the distance. Everyone present tensed up instantly and looked in the direction of the sound. Trees in the distance were being broken non-stop. There seemed to be some huge creature in the forest, approaching secretly. Fortunately, the monster didn't show up in the end, and the air fell silent again. The next day came in the blink of an eye. Everyone gathered to guess what the monster was the night before. Some thought it was a dinosaur, while others thought it was a monkey. Panic had already enveloped everyone, including Jack. But to escape as soon as possible, he still took Charlie and Kate into the jungle to find the cockpit. Despite the danger, however, it wasn't long before it started raining heavily, making the search much more difficult. At the same time, people hiding from the rain inside the plane wreckage noticed the monster was moving again, but the three in the dense forest were completely unaware of this. After walking for an unknown time, they finally found the nose of the plane under a big tree. Climbing inside, they saw that all the first-class passengers had been killed. Then Jack climbed to the cockpit door, picked up an iron block, and tried to break the lock. But the next second, he realized there was just a corpse inside. After calming down a little, Jack climbed into the cockpit to look for the signal device. Unexpectedly, the captain suddenly woke up, scaring both of them. After confirming the captain wasn't a corpse coming back to life, Jack hurried to check on him. Luckily, the captain only had a slight concussion and was otherwise unharmed. The captain also told Jack the reason for the plane crash. As soon as the plane entered the sea area, the signal was lost. To ensure safety, the captain had planned to turn around and go back, but the plane was suddenly hit by a mysterious airflow, causing it to disintegrate instantly. After that, he had passed out. Based on previous data, they were at least thousands of kilometers away from the mainland. There was no way the rescue team could locate them. Hearing this, Jack and Kate completely broke down. In their despair, the captain suddenly remembered there was a backup radio, but after trying to operate it, he found the signal device was broken. With things as they were, everyone could only return to the camp to make further plans. But just then, a strange noise suddenly came from outside, and the plane began to shake. Terrified, everyone hurried to the window and saw a huge black shadow walking past the plane, its footsteps extremely heavy. The captain tried to look outside through the glass, but was suddenly dragged up by something. A shrill scream filled the cabin instantly. No matter how he struggled, it was useless. He was killed on the spot, with blood splattering everywhere. After the captain's death, the surrounding area fell silent again, but before they could catch their breath, the plane started shaking violently again. In an instant, it fell from the tree, making a huge noise. Jack didn't dare to delay. He quickly grabbed the signal device and fled into the woods. The roars coming from behind kept stimulating his already fragile nerves. Fortunately, there was a close call. In the end, the monster didn't chase them. The three finally breathed a sigh of relief and started heading back to the camp. But as soon as they returned, they found two men fighting. Jack and Michael hurried to separate them. After asking, they learned that Sawyer suspected Saeed was the mastermind behind the plane crash. Because everyone in the cabin where Saeed was sitting had died, only he survived. Wasn't that suspicious? Saeed was completely enraged when he heard this. Just as the two were about to fight again, Kate shouted loudly to stop them. She said they had found the signal device, but it was broken and needed someone to repair it. This question left everyone stunned. They stood there staring at each other, and no one said a word. Finally, Saeed stepped forward and said he could fix it. As expected, Sawyer made a series of sarcastic remarks. Hugo tried to persuade Sawyer, but was also mocked. Jack couldn't stand it anymore and went over to warn Sawyer to shut up. Sawyer was afraid of Jack's authority and had to stop. The farce came to an end, and good news followed. Saeed had been a military communicator before, and this signal device was military grade. Fixing it shouldn't be a problem. Sure enough, it wasn't long before Saeed repaired the signal device, but since the battery was almost dead, they needed to go to a higher place to use it, to increase the chance of success. Hearing that they needed to climb the mountain, Kate fell into deep hesitation. After all, she had just escaped death, and now she had to risk her life again, but there was no other choice. Kate had to find Jack to discuss it. As expected, Jack firmly refused Kate's proposal. They had seen the captain die a terrible death, so Jack didn't want Kate to take the risk. But the signal device's battery was running out, and Kate insisted on giving it a try. Jack couldn't persuade her, so he had to agree to go with her, and told Kate to be extra careful. The situation was urgent, so the five of them set off immediately. Unexpectedly, Sawyer followed them halfway. He even deliberately bumped into Kate and walked forward on his own. Everyone was disgusted by Sawyer's behavior. Little did they know that this annoying man would save their lives later. After trekking through a dangerous mountain path, they soon entered the dense forest. Sawyer was still targeting Saeed constantly. Saeed couldn't stand it anymore and was about to lose his temper, but suddenly a noise came from behind. They immediately stopped and stared nervously at the grass in front of them. As the movement grew louder, everyone realized something was wrong and turned around to run, but Sawyer remained unusually calm. He had no intention of running at all. Seeing that everyone had run far away, Sawyer took out a pistol and fired at the distance, but his shooting skills were really bad. He didn't hit a single shot. At the critical moment, Sawyer luckily hit the monster, and they narrowly escaped death. The teammates heard the monster scream and ran back, but when they saw the monster's true face, they were stunned on the spot. It was a snow-white polar bear, and it was living on a tropical desert island. Everyone's perception was completely shattered. They thought they had been knocked silly in the plane crash, but what was even more shocking was that Sawyer had a gun on a passenger plane. Faced with everyone's doubts, Sawyer quickly explained that he had found the gun on a policeman's body. He even took out the police badge to prove it, which finally dispelled everyone's doubts. They continued toward the mountain to seek help. However, something strange happened. When Saeed took out the radio to send a distress signal, he found the rescue channel was already occupied. Someone else nearby was also sending a distress signal, but this was a desolate island with no signs of human life. How could there be other people here? Just as everyone was confused, a French woman's voice suddenly came from the device. They thought it was the rescue team and were overjoyed. They quickly asked the woman in the team who could speak French to translate, but they soon stopped smiling, because this was actually a strange distress signal. "I'm alone on the island. Is there anyone who can save me?" It killed all of them. As the signal source cut off, Saeed also deduced from the frequency that this signal had been sent continuously for 16 years. With no response during that time, this meant that no one would ever know they were trapped here. What exactly was it on the island? Why was a polar bear here? And why did the plane suddenly disintegrate over the desert island? All these supernatural phenomena made everyone's hair stand on end. It seemed that an even bigger trap was waiting for them. Later, the six of them returned to the camp. To avoid causing large-scale panic, they lied about the signal being lost to hide the truth. But things didn't end there. That night, Michael's dog seemed to have found something and kept barking at the plane wreckage. Hearing the noise, everyone hurried to gather nearby. Jack took a small flashlight and shone it inside, but apart from some strange sounds, he didn't find anything. Sawyer, who was standing beside him, grew impatient and directly used a searchlight. Jack hurried to stop him, but it was too late. The scene instantly descended into chaos. Everyone fled like mice seeing a cat, which scared the wild boars so much that they ran into the dense forest and disappeared. Everyone breathed a sigh of relief, grateful that they had escaped another disaster, but the good times didn't last. A new trouble arose. The food stored on the plane had been used up. Hugo was angry that Sawyer was hoarding food for himself, and the two almost got into a fight. Jack hurried to separate them and persuade them, but this was only a temporary solution. The seeds of panic had already been sown. If the food problem wasn't solved soon, desperate people would do anything. Just as they were racking their brains over this, a throwing knife suddenly flew and stuck beside Sawyer. Everyone was stunned and looked back. Locke said they could hunt wild boars for food, and he even made a series of plans for this. But Sawyer thought this was a pipe dream. Trying to subdue a wild boar that weighed several tons with just a small knife, wasn't that asking for death? Locke didn't want to explain to him. He turned around, opened the suitcase at his feet, and looked at Sawyer triumphantly. Sawyer was shocked. There was no time to waste. The three of them set off into the jungle immediately to look for wild boars. After walking for an unknown time, Locke seemed to sense something. He resolutely held out his hand to stop the other two. Later, they found traces of wild boar activity in front of a big tree. Locke signaled that the prey was right ahead and told them to be careful. When they reached the target location, Locke used hand signals to direct Kate to launch a frontal attack with him, while Michael would outflank from the side. But someone hated being pointed at, so he instinctively retorted to Locke, which unexpectedly alarmed the wild boar. It charged straight at them. Locke acted heroically and dodged, but Michael was unlucky. Fortunately, the wild boar didn't continue attacking Michael. He only had a gash from the collision. Otherwise, he would have been seriously injured or even killed. Locke was also quite frightened. After a short rest, Kate suggested going back to the camp to recuperate before trying again, but Locke didn't want to miss this opportunity. He told the two to go back first and said he would hunt the wild boar alone. Kate thought this was too dangerous and shouted to stop him, but it was useless, so Kate had to take Michael back first. But as they walked, Kate suddenly stopped. Without a word, she started taking off her pants. The next second, she climbed to the top of a tree and began testing the island signal. Michael could only sit on the ground, feeling frustrated. But just as the woman was getting the equipment ready, a roar suddenly came from the front. She was so scared that she dropped the equipment, which hit Michael. Kate looked forward and was horrified to find the monster was moving nearby. Locke, who was not far away, was still unaware and continued searching for the prey. Just then, there was a movement from the wild boar in the grass ahead. Locke found the right position and chased forward quickly, but suddenly, the boar's grunts turned into screams, trees shook violently, and roars could be heard from time to time. Locke swallowed hard. A strong sense of fear welled up in him, and for a moment, he forgot to run. On the other side, when Kate and Michael returned to the camp, Jack came to ask about the hunting situation. He was told that Locke might have been killed. Just as the two were feeling sorry for Locke, Jack suddenly noticed a strange man watching them not far away. Jack stood up and chased after him without hesitation, but when he rushed into the woods, the man had disappeared without a trace. Jack wanted to continue searching, but Locke suddenly walked out of the dense forest. He had even caught a wild boar. His body was covered in fresh blood, as if he had just gone through a fierce battle. That night, everyone began to pray for those who had died in the plane crash. During this time, Michael asked Locke if he had seen the monster. Locke said he hadn't. Michael didn't ask further. He just felt that Locke was becoming more and more unusual. The food problem was solved for the time being, but the fresh water stored on the plane was also about to run out. Just as Jack was getting annoyed about this, the mysterious man appeared again, but this time was different. He didn't disappear out of thin air. Instead, he stood there motionless. Jack approached carefully, wanting to know who the man was, but when he saw the man's face clearly, he was so scared that he collapsed to the ground, his face full of disbelief. It was his father, who had just died not long ago. Seeing his father about to disappear again, Jack hurried to chase him, but in his hurry, he tripped over a tree branch and rolled down the hillside. He was about to fall off a cliff and die, but luckily, he grabbed a vine in time and saved his life. But since there was no place to step under his feet and the vine was too slippery, Jack couldn't climb up even with all his strength. At the critical moment, a big hand suddenly reached out from the bottom of the cliff. Jack looked closely and saw it was Locke who had found him. Later, Locke was curious about what Jack was doing on the mountain. Jack didn't hold back and told Locke about the mysterious man. He had thought Locke would think he was crazy, but unexpectedly, Locke not only believed him but also told Jack that this place was very strange. It would be normal even if Ultraman appeared, let alone a mysterious man. After that, Locke left to continue looking for water sources, but as night fell, something even more strange happened. Jack clearly remembered seeing his father die with his own eyes. Moreover, he had taken this plane specifically to transport his father's body back to the United States. Could it be that his father had come back from the dead? Just as he was struggling to figure this out, footsteps suddenly came from behind. Without thinking, Jack grabbed a torch and chased after the sound. In his panic, Jack accidentally found a cave. There was a big waterfall inside. Looking down, he saw a doll in the water and there were more dolls on the ground as well. Jack followed the direction of the dolls and unexpectedly found the wreckage of the plane's cargo hold. When he saw that his father's coffin was intact, he finally breathed a sigh of relief. But when he opened the coffin, he was so scared by what was inside that he stepped back repeatedly. The body was gone. Jack completely broke down. He didn't understand why his father had faked his death, why he had appeared on the island, and why only he could see him while no one else could. All these questions instantly turned into anger. He kept venting his rage on his father's coffin until it was smashed to pieces. Only then did Jack return to the camp, but just as the mysterious incidents came to an end, something strange happened among the survivors. Saeed climbed to the top of the mountain, planning to find the location of the mysterious distress signal transmitter on the island through the radio frequency band. But just as the equipment started to respond, he was suddenly knocked unconscious. Strangely enough, the attacker didn't hurt Saeed further. After destroying the signal device, the attacker left. Based on the known clues, Saeed deduced that someone didn't want to leave the island, which was why they had destroyed only the radio. But there was no way to find out who that person was, so the case had to be put on hold for the time being. However, they couldn't wait to find the signal source, so Saeed said goodbye to everyone and planned to risk hiking across the island to find it. After walking for an unknown time, Saeed was resting by the beach when he suddenly found a section of steel wire buried in the sand not far away. Saeed quickly pulled the wire out to check, only to find that one end of it strangely led into the sea. He was instantly confused, but when he lifted the other end, he found it was connected to the jungle. Curious, the man followed the wire, but not long after, something blocked his way. He squatted down and saw it was a thin iron wire, but this was a desolate island with no human presence. How could this thing be here? Saeed lifted his foot carefully, trying to keep his balance so he could walk around it, but as soon as his back foot touched the ground, he hadn't taken a few steps when he heard a click sound. Before he could react, he was suddenly lifted into the air by a trap and crashed into a tree, losing control of his body. After a short rest, Saeed resolutely straightened his body, grabbed the branch tightly, and then before he could think yanked the branch out. After that, he fainted from the pain. Night fell quickly, and Saeed slowly woke up from his coma. But before he could call for help, a mysterious person suddenly appeared. Cut the rope. Saeed fell headfirst, feeling dizzy and disoriented. He only vaguely saw someone walking toward him, and then he lost consciousness again. After an unknown amount of time, when he woke up again, he found himself in a dimly lit room. His hands and feet were tightly tied, and he couldn't move at all. A woman's voice kept asking questions in his ear, leaving Saeed confused, so he instinctively said he didn't know. But this angered the woman, who immediately used a 100,000-volt electric shock on him. Frightened by the electric shock, Saeed quickly explained that he was a survivor of the plane crash. He had come here to find a distress signal that had been transmitted for 16 years. The woman was shocked to learn that her signal had been transmitted for 16 years and even more shocked that someone had actually received it. The woman suddenly hit Saeed unconscious with the butt of her gun. When he woke up again, the woman had gradually calmed down and started chatting with Saeed. During the conversation, Saeed suddenly noticed that she seemed to care a lot about a broken music box. Hoping to win her favor, Saeed offered to fix it for her, but the woman didn't play by the rules. She stood up, took a syringe from the cabinet, sharpened the needle with sandpaper, and stabbed it into her skin right in front of Saeed. A few hours later, Saeed woke up from his sleep, jolted in fright. The woman in front of him quickly apologized, saying she had no malicious intent. She just wanted to move him to a more convenient position to repair the music box. Seeing the woman's demeanor soften, Saeed threatened her to tell him the whole story first. Otherwise, he would never help her. With no other choice, The woman began to explain. She was actually a member of a scientific expedition team that had encountered a storm while on a mission at sea. Their ship had run aground on this island. Due to severe damage to the hull, they had no choice but to settle there temporarily. Saeed asked what she meant by the line "it killed all of them" and the distress signal he had received. Upon hearing Saeed's question, the woman seemed to recall something terrifying. Her expression turned tense as she said there was a place on the island called the Black Rock, where infected people lived. When Saeed asked if she had seen them with her own eyes, the woman backtracked, saying she hadn't. She had only heard voices occasionally. Hearing this, Saeed finally understood. The woman was probably hallucinating from being alone for too long, so he stopped asking more questions and focused on fixing the music box for her. During this time, he also kept a backup plan. He didn't hand over the screwdriver, planning to find a chance to escape, but he never expected the opportunity to come so soon. Just as the woman was happily holding the repaired music box, a roar suddenly echoed around them. She grabbed her shotgun, ready to face the threat. As soon as the woman left, Saeed quickly used the screwdriver to break the chains. Then he took the island map, all the data materials, slung the shotgun over his shoulder, and fled into the woods. Unfortunately, the woman returned and noticed the commotion. She picked up her gun and walked towards Saeed's location. At the critical moment, Saeed had luckily circled around behind her and threatened her to drop the shotgun. However, in the face of Saeed's threat, the woman not only refused to comply but also slowly raised the shotgun. Saeed thought she would end up dead on the spot, but the next second he realized the woman had known all along that there were no bullets in the gun. Even though Saeed had thought about killing her, the woman had no intention of harming him. She was just too lonely. She had lived alone on the island for 16 years. With no one to talk to, Saeed invited her to return to the camp with him. The woman said nothing. She just lingered for a moment to feel the presence of another human being, then stood up to leave. Before departing, she left Saeed with a warning. "The place you're going back to, you need to keep an eye on those people." Saeed was confused by her words. He couldn't help but stand up and ask why. The woman replied, "People know how to pretend." Saeed immediately realized something was terribly wrong. Ignoring the injury on his leg, he raced toward the camp as fast as he could, but disaster struck earlier than expected. When the pregnant woman woke up, she was horrified to find her unborn baby gone. The sound of a baby crying kept echoing in her ears, confusing her. She followed the cry, but halfway there, she encountered a man fortune-telling. His eyes had no whites, making him look extremely terrifying. Yet the woman didn't seem scared at all. She ignored him and continued toward the source of the crying. Soon, she reached a baby stroller, from which the crying was coming, muffled by a white cloth. The woman felt scared, but to find out where her baby was, she mustered the courage to lift the cloth. Inside, however, was just a pile of minced meat. The woman was instantly petrified with fear. Charlie heard her scream and rushed over, only to find Claire had lost her mind and was attacking everyone around her. Luckily, Charlie calmed her down in time. They initially thought she had just had a nightmare, but when she looked down, the blood on her hands was still there. An eerie atmosphere filled the air in an instant. The next day came quickly. Jack examined Claire's palms and found that she had clenched her fists so tightly that her nails had pierced her skin, causing the bleeding. It was all a false alarm, so they thought, but things were far from simple. That night, while the pregnant woman was still asleep, she was suddenly attacked. A flash of a knife danced across her belly. Everyone was woken by her screams and hurried to gather around Claire, but they found nothing out of the ordinary nearby. Claire said someone had stabbed her in the stomach with a knife, but when Jack lifted her shirt to check, there were no wounds on her belly. Jack thought Claire was suffering from prenatal anxiety and didn't take her claim seriously. He suggested treating her with a sedative. This immediately enraged Claire, who felt Jack didn't believe her. She packed her things and left the cave. When Charlie heard the news, he rushed after her to persuade her to come back. But not long after, Claire suddenly felt a sharp pain in her abdomen. It seemed like she was going into labor. Charlie hurried to the cave to inform Jack. By coincidence, he ran into their fellow survivor Ethan on the way, so Charlie asked Ethan to go tell Jack, while he went back to look after Claire. Little did he know that this seemingly perfect decision would lead to disaster for Claire. Not long after Charlie returned, Claire's abdominal pain gradually subsided. She could even walk on her own again. The two then planned to head back to the camp, but halfway there, they ran into Ethan. He hadn't brought Jack with him. Instead, he stared at Claire with a strange, unblinking gaze. At the same time, Saeed suddenly returned to the camp, limping. He told Jack that there were other people on the island. Before Jack could process this, Hugo brought more news. There was an extra survivor named Ethan among them, someone who hadn't been on the plane. This revelation sent shockwaves through the group. Jack instantly realized the danger and rushed to search for Claire and Charlie with Locke, but it was too late. Apart from some signs of a struggle, there was no trace of Claire or Charlie at the scene. Locke suggested returning to the camp first to gather supplies before continuing the search, but Jack was already in a panic. He blamed himself if he hadn't misjudged Claire's condition. She would never have left the camp, and none of this danger would have happened. He rushed into the jungle alone to search, but soon realized he was going in circles, unable to find his way. It wasn't until Locke caught up with him and the others that they resumed the search. Fortunately, they found one of Charlie's fingerless gloves along the way, proof they were on the right track. Unfortunately, they soon reached a fork in the road, with footprints leading down both paths. The four of them decided to split up, Locke and Boone in one group, Jack and Kate in the other. But misfortune never comes alone. It began to rain heavily, making the search far more difficult. After walking for an unknown time, Jack found another of Charlie's gloves, but before he could feel relieved, Claire's screams echoed around them. Once they roughly located the sound, Jack climbed up along a vine without hesitation, with Kate following closely behind. In his hurry, Jack lost his grip and fell head over heels from the top of the slope, crashing heavily onto the ground. The pain made him gasp. When he finally managed to roll over, he found Ethan standing right in front of him. Ethan kicked Jack without a word and warned him, "If you keep following me, I'll kill Charlie." Jack clearly didn't back down. He mustered all his strength to grab Ethan's legs and threw him hard to the ground. Jack then pressed his advantage, swinging a right hook with all his might, but Ethan dodged it easily. In return, Ethan landed several heavy punches, knocking Jack to the ground. Jack was kicked unconscious shortly after. A few minutes later, Kate found the unconscious Jack. Before they could even catch their breath, Jack insisted on continuing the search. Kate hurried to stop him, explaining that the rain had washed away all traces. There was no way to find Claire and Charlie now, but Jack ignored her and walked forward on his own. Kate had no choice but to follow. After walking for an unknown time, the two found Charlie hanging unconscious in midair from a tree. Jack didn't dare to delay. He rushed over to rescue Charlie, but by then, Charlie had already stopped breathing. No matter what Jack did to revive him, there was no response. Kate, unable to face the truth, turned away and burst into tears, but Jack still refused to give up. He kept hitting Charlie's chest, harder and harder. Kate watched in horror as he grew more frantic. Just as Jack was about to give up and accept Charlie's death, Charlie suddenly took a breath. The two wept with joy, then carried Charlie back to the camp. When Jack asked about Claire, Charlie only said faintly, "Claire is the one they want," and refused to say anything more. Jack had no choice but to drop the subject. Meanwhile, Locke's group was still searching the jungle. Boone saw that it was about to rain again and suggested returning the way they came and trying again the next day. But Locke wasn't ready to give up. He told Boone to go back first while he continued forward. With that, he tossed the only flashlight to Boone. Boone failed to catch it, and both of them froze. Why did the flashlight make a clinking sound like metal when it hit the dirt? Locke dug up the soil and found a metal plate underneath. He then tapped around with his knife. There was an empty space below. Boone looked confused. Locke said, "This is what we've been looking for." The two began digging, and soon uncovered a strange metal hatch. Its design was so unusual that it didn't seem to be from Earth. To find out what was inside, they secretly took a fire axe from the camp while no one was looking, hoping to force the hatch open, but they couldn't even scratch the glass window. Locke decided to return to the camp first to plan their next move. On the way back, Boone suggested telling the others about the hatch. Otherwise, their repeated empty-handed returns from hunting would only arouse suspicion. But Locke seemed to be hiding something. He firmly opposed Boone telling anyone about the hatch. Boone had no choice but to compromise, but he insisted on telling his sister Shannon. He didn't want his family to suspect him. Locke saw how determined he was and reluctantly agreed. But before Boone could take 2 steps, Locke suddenly attacked him from behind, hitting him on the back of the head. Boone fell to the ground, unconscious. When Boone woke up again, he was tied up tightly. Locke was calmly mixing some unknown liquid nearby. Boone was terrified. He begged Locke to untie him, swearing he would never tell anyone the secret. But Locke ignored him. Instead, he held Boone's head down and slathered the unknown liquid all over his wound. After doing this, Locke prepared to pack up and leave. Perhaps his conscience got the better of him before leaving. He tossed a knife to Boone, then hurried back to the camp, ignoring Boone's desperate shouts. As time passed, Boone tried to reach the knife with his hands, but Locke's binding was cleverly done. Every time he stretched his front hand forward, the ropes around his back tightened. For every inch he moved toward the knife handle, The pain of his dislocating shoulder grew worse. Helpless, Boone could only shout for help, hoping someone would hear him. Meanwhile, Saeed was drawing a topographic map of the island. He suddenly heard footsteps behind him, grabbed his knife, and turned around only to find Locke passing by. Saeed relaxed his guard and slowly lowered the knife. During their conversation, Locke learned that Saeed was trying to draw a map. He took the initiative to give Saeed his only compass. Saeed was confused. Why would a hunter who spent so much time in the jungle give away his only navigation tool so casually? But to finish his map quickly, Saeed didn't overthink it. However, he soon realized something was wrong. The compass had been tampered with. Its directions were completely reversed. Saeed told Jack the truth, suspecting Locke was deliberately sabotaging their efforts. Jack was confused and couldn't make up his mind about what to do. On the other side, Boone was asleep when he was suddenly woken by a voice. He looked up sharply, but the sound was gone. Boone was confused, thinking he was hallucinating until the voice called again. He realized it was his sister coming to rescue him and shouted loudly, but his sister had also been tied up and brought there. Before Boone could react, he heard the monster's roar and his sister's screams for help in the distance. Seeing his sister in danger, Boone didn't hesitate. He took a deep breath, enduring the agony of his dislocating arm, and reached for the knife. Finally, just as his arm was about to give out, he grabbed the knife and pulled it free. Without stopping to rest, he quickly cut the ropes and raced toward the sound of his sister's voice. He found her under a big tree and rushed to cut her bonds, but the monster had already spotted him. As the monster drew closer, Boone managed to untie the ropes just in time. He grabbed his sister and fled into the woods, but no matter how fast they ran, they couldn't outrun the monster. At the critical moment, Boone and his sister hid in the bushes nearby, narrowly escaping. After an unknown time, the area outside grew quiet. Boone mustered the courage to go out and check. The monster was gone. Shannon then asked Boone why Locke had kidnapped her for no reason. Boone didn't answer, planning to talk about it once they got back to the camp. But on the way back, Shannon kept asking questions, distracting Boone so much that he couldn't tell which direction to go. Frustrated, he told her about the hatch they had found, but this revealed their location. The monster appeared instantly. The two turned and ran. In their panic, they ran into an open, unshielded patch of grass. The monster grabbed Shannon and lifted her into the air, tearing at her violently. Boone heard her screams and tried to turn back to save her, but it was too late. He could only watch helplessly as his sister was taken away. He then followed the direction the monster had left and found some blood by a small river. Boone looked upstream and saw his sister lying on the rocks by the riverbank. He knew something terrible had happened and rushed over, but what he saw made him stare in horror. His sister's upper body was covered in mangled flesh, her clothes soaked through with blood. Boone held her in his arms, calling her name over and over, hoping for a response, but his sister was already dead. He could only cradle her body and sob, vowing to make Locke pay for her death. Night fell quickly. Boone returned to the camp and saw Locke sitting by the campfire, warming himself as if nothing had happened. The anger in his heart boiled over. He pulled out his knife and charged at Locke. After a scuffle, Boone pinned Locke to the ground, demanding to know why he had kidnapped his sister and let her be killed by the monster. But Locke looked extremely surprised when he heard this, saying, "I didn't kidnap Shannon." Boone refused to believe him. Locke then asked, "If you held your sister's body, why is there no blood on you?" Boone was stunned. He had held his sister's corpse. Why wasn't there any blood on him? While Boone was distracted, Locke pushed him away. He was about to ask for more details when Shannon's voice suddenly came from behind. Boone looked up and saw his sister standing unharmed by the water, fetching water. His mind went blank, but then he suspected the substance Locke had put on his head was to blame. Locke denied it, explaining it was just antiseptic. He suspected the monster had deliberately tricked Boone, but he had no idea what its purpose was. Yet strange things didn't stop there. The next day, while Kate and Sawyer were swimming in the lake, they found two human bodies at the bottom with a suitcase placed beside them. They brought the suitcase to shore. Sawyer noticed Kate seemed to recognize it and teasingly tried to claim it for himself. Kate forced herself to stay calm, saying, "It doesn't matter who takes it." But after Sawyer fell asleep, Kate snuck into his tent, planning to take the suitcase. However, Sawyer had been waiting for her. He grabbed her arm and pinned her down. Kate reacted quickly, slamming her head into Sawyer's nose and reaching for the suitcase. But the more she fought for it, the more determined Sawyer was to stop her. He clung to the suitcase tightly. Kate had no choice but to leave. This only made Sawyer more curious about what was inside. The next day, he tried to break the suitcase open. but it was harder than he expected. Michael walked by and suggested he smash it open with brute force. Sawyer took his advice, went into the woods to find a rock, and started hitting the suitcase against it. But after several attempts, he still couldn't open it and he nearly injured his already hurt arm. Furious, he climbed to a high spot, planning to drop the suitcase and break it open on impact. But this didn't work either. Worse, Kate, who had been hiding nearby, took advantage of his frustration, grabbed the suitcase, and ran away with a triumphant smile. Sawyer was furious. He chased after her. Kate, being a woman, couldn't outrun him for long. Sawyer soon caught up and pinned her down. Kate tried to use the same headbutt trick again, but Sawyer dodged it easily, wearing a triumphant smirk. When they stood up, Sawyer offered to give her the suitcase on one condition. She had to tell him what was inside that made her so desperate to get it. But Kate fell into silence, staring at Sawyer without saying a word. Sawyer sighed, shrugged his shoulders, and walked out of the woods. But Kate didn't give up. She went to Jack for help, telling him the suitcase contained a large number of weapons and that it was dangerous for Sawyer to have it. But Jack wasn't easily fooled. Whatever was in that suitcase, it must be more important than just weapons to make Kate so anxious. He insisted they open it together. Kate agreed without hesitation. Jack then went to Sawyer to ask for the suitcase, but Sawyer refused without a second thought. Jack then threatened him, "If you don't give it to me, I'll stop giving you the antibiotics for your arm." Sawyer backed down completely. Jack got what he wanted, but before leaving, Sawyer warned him, "Don't trust Kate." Jack took the suitcase back to the cave, took the key from Kate, and began the long-awaited task of opening it. As expected, the suitcase was filled with weapons, for AWM sniper rifles, along with thousands of rounds of ammunition, but the weapons didn't matter. The real secret was a small, unassuming envelope. Kate's secret. Jack handed her the envelope and told her to open it herself. He expected a nuclear bomb inside, but it turned out to be just a model airplane. Jack was completely dumbfounded and asked Kate, "What the hell is this thing?" Kate didn't want to answer. She stood up, ready to leave. Jack stepped forward to press her for answers. Kate broke down and told him, "It belonged to the person I loved. I accidentally killed them." A beautiful woman was bathing in the sea in a bikini. Bathing itself was unremarkable, but her husband, a total chauvinist, insisted on taking her home immediately. But one man kept staring at her. This enraged the husband. The two were about to fight when the woman suddenly slapped the man across the face, leaving him stunned. It would have been normal for a wife to defend her husband, but things took a weirder turn. The woman secretly went to Michael and revealed her husband's secrets. Two men snuck into the woods, but a strange noise suddenly echoed around them. One of the men collapsed to the ground instantly. Charlie, confused, glanced nervously around but saw nothing. When he turned back, though, a man was walking toward him, no doubt the one who'd attacked. Charlie grabbed a stick, determined to strike first, but the man easily dodged. He grabbed Charlie by the throat and lifted him above his head with one hand. His strength was extraordinary. The man then threatened Charlie, "By tomorrow evening, you must bring the pregnant woman from your group here, otherwise, I'll kill all of you." With that, he turned and left. The survivors were furious when they heard the news, but the enemy was hidden while they were exposed. Charging into a fight with the island's natives would mean almost no chance of winning. Their only option for now was to set up defenses. They laid countless tripwire traps around the camp. Next, they lit bonfires around the camp and posted sentries every 10 meters, rotating 24 hours a day. But disaster still struck. A man was found dead on the beach the next morning, his neck twisted clean off by hand. A brutal, gruesome death. Yet no one had noticed a thing. Panic swept through the camp instantly. Everyone feared they'd be next. Some even began avoiding Claire, blaming her for everything. Claire, still in the dark, sensed the tension and asked her friends. Only then did she learn the truth. At the same time, Jack planned to take the initiative. He retrieved a mysterious leather case from the bushes, made sure no one was following him, then opened it carefully. Inside were 4 police-issue pistols. Now they had weapons, but how to find the mysterious man's location? The group suggested using Claire as bait to lure him out, but Charlie firmly opposed the idea. As the 4 argued, Claire spoke up. She was willing to go. She didn't want anyone else to die because of her. There was no time to waste. A group of 6 set off immediately. Charlie didn't know how to use a gun, so he stayed behind on standby. But the weather took a turn for the worse. Soon after they left, it began pouring rain. Claire walked alone through the woods, while the others hid nearby in ambush. Saeed took position high up to keep watch. Sawyer guarded the flanks. Jack prepared for a frontal attack, and Locke covered the rear. The 3 formed a triangular formation, waiting for their target to take the bait, but hours passed, and there was still no movement. Just as Claire let her guard down in the next second, a man charged at her. Claire turned and ran, but she was pregnant. She couldn't outrun the strong, fit Ethan. At the critical moment, Jack rushed in from the side and tackled Ethan to the ground, but his pistol slipped out of his hand. Jack didn't care about the gun. He seized the opportunity and grappled with Ethan. By the time the others arrived, Jack had already captured Ethan alive. Planning to take him back for questioning, Sawyer wanted to show off, so he raised his gun and pressed it to Ethan's head to scare him. But in the next instant, Ethan was shot dead. Everyone stared in shock. It was Charlie, who'd picked up Jack's pistol. Ethan was definitely dead. Their only lead to the natives was gone. Back at the cave later, Jack asked Charlie why he'd done it. Charlie admitted he loved Claire and had killed Ethan to avenge her. Jack was left speechless. He turned to find Saeed, planning to study the map they'd stolen from the French woman to find the natives' location. But just then, Hugo suddenly spotted a familiar sequence of numbers on a scrap of paper. It hit him instantly. The plane crash on the island might not have been an accident at all. This poor guy was about to strike it rich. He clutched a lottery ticket in one hand and stared fixedly at the TV. As the final winning number appeared, the guy had a heart attack and fainted on the spot. Yes, he'd won. It was his first time buying a lottery ticket, and he'd hit the jackpot, $160 million. Media outlets swarmed to cover his story. He was in the spotlight everywhere, but little did he know, his real misfortune was just beginning. One second he was saying he'd take his grandfather on vacation. The next, his grandfather had a heart attack and died. The guy thought it was a coincidence and didn't take it seriously. After burying his grandfather, he wanted to surprise his mom with a secret gift. He even made her wear a blindfold before getting out of the car. But when his mom stepped out, she twisted her ankle. She flew into a rage and yelled at him. Just then, his mom seemed to smell something. The guy looked up. His newly bought mansion was on fire for no reason. He tried to call the police, but as soon as he got through, officers arrived at the scene. The guy was confused until the police pointed their guns at him. He was thrown in jail, though he was released the same day. It turned out the police had mistaken him for a suspect while patrolling the streets. A ridiculous mix-up. But these consecutive accidents felt too coincidental. Could the money be cursed? But he wasn't the only lottery winner. After thinking it over, the guy suspected the sequence of numbers was to blame. His lawyer thought he was being paranoid until it became clear it wasn't just him who had bad luck. Anyone close to him suffered misfortune too. To uncover the truth, Hugo went to a mental hospital to find the friend who'd told him the numbers. But when Hugo asked questions, his friend acted as if he couldn't hear. He just kept muttering the numbers over and over. It wasn't until Hugo mentioned he'd won the lottery that his friend snapped to his senses. He shouted frantically, "You should stay away from those numbers. Otherwise, the disasters will keep repeating." The friend grew more and more agitated. Hugo was confused and tried to ask more, but orderlies stepped in to stop him. Before being dragged away, the friend told Hugo, "Go to Australia. Find someone named Sam. He'll tell you the truth." Hugo was skeptical, but he went to Sam's house anyway to find answers. He was told Sam was dead, but luckily, when Hugo explained why he'd come, Sam's wife revealed she knew about the numbers too. It turned out Sam had served in a U.S. Navy listening post, monitoring radio waves over the Pacific. But one night 16 years ago, a voice suddenly came over the radio, repeating the sequence of numbers non-stop. At first, Sam didn't think much of it until strange things started happening. Sam joined a gambling game, guessed the number of beans in a basin, win $1 million. He tried saying the sequence of numbers and he guessed correctly. He made a fortune, but on their way home, Sam and his wife got into a car crash. His wife lost a leg. Sam walked away unharmed. After that, anyone close to Sam suffered terrible luck. After testing it repeatedly, Sam realized everything was connected to the numbers. They moved to Australia, hoping to stop the tragedies, but it didn't work. In the end, Sam shot himself. Hugo felt a chill run down his spine. He told her he'd had the same experience, winning the lottery with the numbers, then being haunted by bad luck. But the woman flew into a rage. She refused to believe a sequence of numbers could bring misfortune, calling it a coward's fantasy to avoid reality. Hugo was unsure what to do. He decided to head back to the US first, but an accident happened mid-flight. Flight 809 disintegrated in mid-air and crashed onto a desert island in the Pacific. Even more surprisingly, most passengers survived and Hugo's bad luck disappeared. Not long after, he saw the same sequence of numbers again, in a mysterious woman's journal. Determined to find the truth, Hugo snuck out of the camp to find the woman and ask her about it. He searched the island's coastline and found a cable leading into the jungle. He followed it, trekking through mountains and rivers, and finally found the mysterious woman. Seeing her wariness, Hugo quickly pulled the journal from his pocket to explain his purpose. He said he was a plane crash survivor. Only then did the woman lower her guard and start explaining the number's origin. 16 years ago, her oceanographic research team had accidentally picked up radio waves carrying the numbers. Curious about their source, they changed course to find the signal. Along the way, their ship hit a reef and ran aground on the island, but they didn't give up. Weeks later, they found a signal tower, a place they called the Black Rock. Not long after, though, all her teammates died of illness. She reconfigured the tower to send out a distress signal, but no rescue team had received it in over a decade. As for the number's secret, she had no idea. The investigation hit another dead end. Hugo had to return to the camp to plan his next move. What he didn't know, the same mysterious numbers were on the secret hatch Locke had found. Perhaps the island's truth lay inside. 2 plane crash survivors found a mysterious device on the island. It had a hatch but no keyhole or doorknob. Clearly, its designer didn't want anyone getting in. But why would such a high-tech object exist on a deserted island? To find out what was inside, they used debris from the plane to make a crude wrecking hammer, hoping to force the door open. With a loud crash, the impact shattered their support structure, but the door remained unscathed. Locke flew into a rage, kicking and yelling at the door. Just then, Boone ran over and told him to look down. Locke saw his calf was injured, but he felt no pain at all. That night, Locke tested himself, pricking his leg with a steel needle, burning it with a torch. Still no sensation. He suspected the device was to blame. He was determined to open it. But just then, the roar of a plane engine echoed in the sky. They looked up to see a plane spiraling out of control, crashing down. They thought it was their chance to be rescued, but instead, it uncovered a huge secret of the island. The two rushed toward the crash site without hesitation. Along the way, Locke spotted something, picked it up across. Boone thought it belonged to someone from the camp, but when Locke pulled a vine, a badly decomposed body fell from the tree. It had gold teeth, $100,000 in Zimbabwean dollars in its pocket, and a .42 caliber German-made pistol. Its identity was unknown, but it was no ordinary person. They continued on and finally found the plane stuck in a tree. Strangely, even though it had just crashed, it was already covered in moss. Locke's leg injury flared up, making it hard for him to move. Boone went to check the plane alone. Inside, Boone found an aviation map. Before he could study it, the plane lost balance and shook violently, nearly falling from the tree. A rotting corpse was thrown out, startling Boone. After calming down, Boone found dozens of Buddha statues. When he broke one open, he found contraband inside. Frustrated at finding nothing useful, Boone was about to leave until he noticed the plane's radio still worked. He didn't have time to celebrate before the plane shook again. On the verge of crashing, Locke shouted for Boone to get out, but the radio had already connected. Boone refused to give up the chance. He ignored Locke's warnings and begged for help. As soon as he finished speaking, the plane lost all balance and plummeted headfirst to the ground with a deafening crash. Locke didn't care about his leg anymore. He rushed to rescue Boone. Boone was badly injured. Locke, summoning strength he didn't know he had, lifted Boone onto his shoulders and carried him back to the camp. Half an hour later, Locke brought Boone to the camp. When Jack asked what had happened, Locke lied. He fell off a cliff. Jack began treating Boone, but when he called for Locke's help, Locke had already left the camp. He went to the hatch and cried out loud. It turned out Locke had been a paraplegic, unable to walk until he came to the island, where he miraculously stood up again. He thought it was the island's magic, but now his legs had gone numb again. He knelt by the hatch, desperate for answers, but got no response. Suddenly, the hatch seemed to hear him. It lit up with flashes of light. The island was answering. At the same time, Boone woke up from his coma and told Jack about the hatch. Before Jack could ask more, Boone passed out again. Jack then noticed Boone's leg was swollen. It wasn't a fall injury like Locke had claimed. His treatment plan had been wrong from the start. The next day, Boone died. Coincidentally, Claire's baby was born the same day. The group was torn between joy and sorrow, but Locke was nowhere to be seen. It wasn't until Boone's funeral that Locke returned to the camp. Covered in blood, he told everyone he'd hidden the truth about the plane. Jack flew into a rage. Boone's death had pushed him over the edge. He charged at Locke, ready to kill him. The others rushed to pull them apart, barely preventing another tragedy. After calming Jack down, Saeed asked Locke to take him to the plane, claiming he wanted to find the radio. In reality, he planned to question Locke. That's when they uncovered a shocking secret. Locke was the one who'd knocked Saeed unconscious and destroyed his radio equipment when Saeed tried to send a signal from the mountain. Saeed lost his temper and pointed a gun at Locke's head. Locke quickly explained, "I was worried the radio would give away our camp's location, drawing an attack from the natives. That's why I stopped you." Saeed reluctantly believed him, but when he asked about the hatch, Locke played dumb again. In the end, Locke had to take Jack and Saeed to the hatch, but he kept quiet about the lights. Jack wanted to open the hatch, but Saeed firmly opposed it. "We have no idea what dangers might be inside," he said. "Opening it recklessly could be catastrophic." They had to put the hatch on hold, but there was good news. Michael's raft was finished. Just as they were about to launch it, Walt suddenly noticed something. Everyone looked. A column of black smoke was rising from the center of the island. At the same time, Danielle arrived unexpectedly. Drawn by the smoke, Danielle told them, "The black smoke is a signal. When it appears, the natives are coming to attack. Your only choices are hide or die." As soon as she spoke, Jack and the others hurried to plan, but there were 46 of them, too many to hide. They didn't know how many natives there were, either. Fighting back would mean almost no chance of winning. Desperate, Jack took Danielle to the mysterious hatch, hoping she knew how to open it to use it as a shelter. Danielle had never seen it before, but she knew where to find explosives. Time was short. The group prepared to leave immediately, but before they set off, a man approached Jack. "I'm a chemistry teacher," he said. "I can help with the explosives." Jack agreed. A group of 6 set off. After walking for an unknown time, Danielle suddenly stopped the group. "The next area is dangerous," she said. "My teammates died nearby. We have to run through it quickly." The chemistry teacher panicked and tried to run away. Jack stopped him. "What about the explosives?" he asked, but the teacher was too scared. "Handle them gently," he shouted, then fled. Jack was furious but helpless. They had to keep going. Then it started raining heavily, making the already rough mountain path even slipperier. Just then, everyone heard a noise. They looked up. The lost chemistry teacher had found his way back. But in the next instant, the monster appeared. Everyone ran for their lives. Locke, however, was surprisingly calm. Instead of running, he stood there, waiting for something. Danielle and the others hid in the bushes. The monster's roars stopped, replaced by heavy footsteps nearby. Seconds later, the footsteps faded. The air fell silent again. Everyone breathed a sigh of relief and regrouped. The chemistry teacher didn't dare to split off again. He stuck with the group. After walking for hours more, they finally reached the explosives location, a dilapidated pirate ship. Everyone stared in shock. It was 4 kilometers from the coast. How had a ship ended up stranded here? Danielle had no answer. She showed them the way, then turned and left. Locke and 2 others went inside the ship. The hold was filled with cells with iron shackles. It was a medieval slave ship. Jack opened one of the doors and found crates of explosives. But when they carried the crates out, the chemistry teacher rushed over to stop them. "You fools!" he shouted. "That's nitroglycerin. One wrong bump and it'll explode." He then demonstrated the correct way to handle it. First, lift the explosives carefully by both ends. Then soak a shirt in water. Wrap the explosives gently in the wet shirt to keep them damp, minimizing static electricity. But the bomb exploded suddenly, leaving no trace behind. After a short rest, Jack and Locke tried again, learned from their mistake. They were even more careful. Luckily, they succeeded without incident. They packed the explosives into backpacks. The 4 then headed back to the hatch. Along the way, Jack suddenly spotted a wisp of black smoke drifting through the bushes. He thought he was hallucinating and asked Kate to confirm. She'd seen it too. They realized danger was near and hurried to leave, but the monster still found them. In an instant, trees were uprooted around them. The 3 panicked and ran. Locke didn't run. Instead, he walked toward the monster, his face filled with excitement. Jack realized something was wrong and turned back, but it was too late. The monster burst out of the ground and dragged Locke away. Jack chased after them, pulling Locke free just as he was about to be dragged into a cave. But the monster was too strong. Jack could barely hold on. He couldn't pull Locke out. In desperation, Jack told Kate to bring the explosives and threw them into the cave. With a muffled explosion, the monster released Locke and vanished into a cloud of black mist. Strangely, instead of being grateful, Locke glared at Jack as if angry that Jack had hurt the monster. Meanwhile, the raft was successfully launched. A small group set off to find help. Late that night, Sawyer picked up a passing ship on the radio. They didn't hesitate. They fired a flare immediately. Minutes later, a ship approached. They were overjoyed, thinking their suffering was finally over. But when the ship's crew learned their situation, they demanded, "Hand over Walt." Michael thought he'd misheard, but the answer was the same. "We're taking Walt." Tension spiked. Sawyer sensed danger and slowly reached for the gun at his waist. The lights went out. Sawyer fired but missed. The crew shot back, hitting Sawyer and knocking him into the sea. His friends jumped in to save him. The crew seized the opportunity, swarming forward to throw Michael into the water too and kidnap Walt. Before leaving, they threw a bomb to destroy the raft. Michael could only watch as his son was taken away. Screaming in despair, on the island, Jack asked Locke, "Why did you look at me like that? Were you trying to protect the monster?" Locke stopped pretending. He laid out his beliefs. The plane crash wasn't an accident. It was fate that brought us here. How else could we have survived the plane breaking apart? He continued, Boone being crushed by the plane, the black smoke rising. None of this is a coincidence. These things happened to lead us to opening the hatch. But Jack was a realist. He didn't believe in fate. Locke sighed in frustration. The four then placed the explosives near the hatch and laid the fuse. But just as they were ready, Hugo's flashlight fell. He bent down to pick it up and accidentally saw a sequence of numbers on the hatch. The same devil's numbers his friend had talked about. Hugo realized something terrible was about to happen. He rushed forward to stop the detonation. Locke ignored him and lit the fuse. Hugo lost his mind, trying to stamp out the fuse, not caring that the bomb was about to explode. Jack pulled Hugo away just in time. The next second, the hatch exploded violently, lighting up the sky. When the smoke cleared, the hatch door was completely destroyed. Jack and the others opened it carefully and were stunned. Inside was a ladder, leading down into an endless tunnel. The island's secret. The end of their fate might lie within. I'm a movie enthusiast. Please subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you next time.